Hey everyone, welcome to another Redstone build tutorial. I'm NetherCloud, and today we are going to be building this trans-dimensional killing chamber for your Guardian farm. If you'd like to skip ahead to the block-by-block portion of this video, I'll provide a link in the description so that you can do so. This design is highly influenced by the Impulse SV Guardian farm that he built in Hermitcraft Season 7, in which he took Guardians from the overworld, brought them to a killing chamber in the Nether, and then had the items sent back to the overworld to be collected and sorted. I fell in love with this concept, so when it came time to build a Guardian farm in my own world, I decided to take a shot at building one. I hopped into a creative world and jumped on a live stream on Twitch, and with the help of a few community members, was able to come up with this compact design. For those of you who don't know, if you press F3 and G on your keyboard, you'll bring up your chunk borders. This is important because we want to make sure that this contraption fits fully within a single chunk. As you can see, we neatly tucked it into the corner, and it goes all the way from one side to the other to ensure that we have the maximum distance between the mob input portal and the item output portal. There is a little bit of play in this direction, so if you need to bring it closer to center, you can. Just make sure that all of the redstone and all of the portals fall within a single chunk. When the Guardians come through from the farm, they will load the chunk because they're coming through this portal. Most Guardian farms have a high enough output that the chunk will stay continually loaded, allowing this contraption to kill and send the items back through continuously. Any design you use that sends Guardians through portals should be able to link up and work with this system, and it will also work in bedrock. We just have to make a minor modification to the circuit over here, which I'll go over when we do the block by block. Let's get rid of these chunk borders and talk about how the Guardians are going to get processed through this. They're going to come through the portal and be killed on the soul fires. We use soul fires because they do a lot more damage than regular campfires do, and we want to make sure that we're killing as fast as the Guardians are coming into the farm. Since we're generally going to have a lot of drops, I wanted to make sure that we were collecting them fast enough, so I took a trick that I learned from Mango's channel and set up this hopper configuration going into these droppers on the sides. With this hopper configuration, your hopper is essentially functioning at double speed. See how it's taking two items out at a time? One is getting pushed over to the top hopper, and the other one is getting sucked down to the one below. Both are putting it into the dropper, and they do gallop in a little bit because of the way the game timing works, but it's much faster than if you had a single line of hoppers just going into the dropper circuit. Around the outer ring here, you'll see the solid blocks and the glass, and this is the redstone line that pulses our droppers when the system is on. Right now, we have a redstone block sending a signal into the redstone here so that we have them fully powered, which means they can't receive a pulse from the auto circuit. We do this so that we are able to turn the farm on and off as we need it, because it is quite loud and will cause a bit of lag if you leave it running all the time in your world or on your server. Over here, we have an auto dropper circuit that I absolutely love that I found on Reddit. I'll try to find a link to that thread, but I was kind of just in a deep rabbit hole, so if I can't, please don't hold it against me. The dropper down here is essentially used as a dummy. We do not have any items in it, and because of the butting mechanics in Java, this creates a loop that makes a very, very fast clock. This makes sure that all the items coming into our droppers get pushed out as fast as they're coming in. And this glass chamber with this piston configuration squeezes all of the items down to a single block. The slime over here then shoots them across the ice into the portal. The on-off switch over here simultaneously turns on the auto dropper circuit and the circuit for the pistons. If we don't want our pistons pulsing at the speed of our auto dropper, that would be just unnecessarily fast. In order to create a slower pulse, I created this very simple hopper clock with a circle of hoppers feeding into each other. If you decide you need a faster clock, you can face two hoppers directly into each other or use any number of other clocks to pulse the circuit. but I find that this is a great speed for what we're doing. Let me turn it on and show you what it looks like. You'll see the items that we put in earlier being dropped into the glass chamber, and the piston array sending them down to a single block. They're shot across the ice and into the portal. Now, when you're down here, make sure that the places where the obsidian blocks are obsidian blocks, or any other non-movable block, because the slime will drag the blocks if you use iron or glass or any other block besides the non-movable ones. There are non-movable blocks that don't have a full block hitbox. I do not recommend using them because you may wind up with alignment issues, and you want to make sure that everything fits down this chute so that it can go through to the overworld. That all being said, my last recommendation before we get into putting a block by block together is that you guys do a deep dive into linking portals that are in close proximity, unless you're already well versed in how to do that yourself. It can be very frustrating if it's the first time, and there are a few tips and tricks I recommend. When you're setting up the Guardian farm, make sure that this chamber is as far away from it as possible while all of the portals are still linking to this upper portal. If they are not, and Guardians are coming through this lower portal, you're gonna have a bad time. As long as none of the Guardians are coming through the lower portal, you should be good as far as the top portal linking is concerned. But when the items are coming back through, you also have to make sure that they're not going to where the Guardians are coming in. Another recommendation is that you check this before you turn on the Guardian farm. Walk through the portal yourself or throw items through so that you can see which portals link to what without having to send through a massive amount of Guardians, because if they do wind up in the outer area here, they're going to be a bit of a pain to kill. Once you've linked everything up nicely, this system is going to be fantastic for you. So let's get into building the block by block. Firstly, I'm going to put a list of materials up on the screen so you guys know everything you need to create this. For those of you that are familiar with it, you'll notice that this is a list from Lightmatica, so I'll also provide a download link in the description for the schematic if you'd like to build it from a schematic. As I mentioned earlier, positioning this build is very important. We need to make sure that our portals have the most possible distance between the two of them, and that the entire contraption fits within a single chunk. In order to do this correctly, we're going to start with the bottom right corner of our upper portal, and we're going to measure in 3 blocks from one side and 4 from the other. Ideally, our Guardian farm in the overworld is going to be in that direction, or slightly off in this diagonal, but not off to this side or that side, and definitely not in this direction. That being said, let's get rid of our wool blocks and put our portal up. The next step is to start putting our glass cage in that's going to contain our Guardians from getting out. Once you have this shape, the next thing we're going to do is extend the glass down to, including the space underneath the obsidian. Now we can go ahead and place the hoppers in droppers in that double speed hopper configuration that we looked at earlier. Now we're going to put in the redstone ring that's going to power the droppers. We don't need the 2 back corners because the redstone doesn't need to go all the way around. And the reason I left this corner out is because this is where we're going to build the circuit that's going to pulse the droppers. Since we're going to come down an extra piece of glass anyway, let's do that first, and then we'll build the auto dropper circuit. With that circle of glass completed, we're going to create the clock that's going to pulse the droppers. On Java, we're going to do that by placing an additional dropper here. This dropper will not be receiving any items from the system and is just a dummy dropper that we're using to trigger the clock. We create the rest of the clock by putting an observer facing down into it and a redstone dust on top. Once the system is powered and unpowered, this clock will pulse at a very fast rate, and if we put redstone dust around the outer ring here, Now all of the droppers will be powered every time the clock pulses. If you're on bedrock or just don't like this clock for some reason, you can always remove this dropper and put another observer here. This creates a standard observer clock and is also a very fast pulse, although not quite as fast as the previous one we built. If you want to add an on-off feature to this, you could do the same thing where we put a redstone block to make the line permanently engaged, or you could put a piston that moves this block back and forth. Let's stick this guy back in, and as you can see, it's pulsing a little bit faster. We're going to place our redstone block to turn that off, and you're going to do that by putting it right up against that spot right there. That's where we need it, so we'll do that later. Now that we have enough of the build so that we can tell which side is which, we're going to stop looking at our chunk borders. I was leaving them up intentionally so that I can maintain the orientation as I built the symmetrical part of the build. We're going to do the next section, which is putting in the pistons. We're going to put a temporary block up here or wherever you need it to get the best position in your world, and you're going to place a piston so that it's facing inward, like so. You're then going to place 4 more pistons, all facing inward, right next to it. And in front of those, you're going to be placing a row of glass. This side will only have 1 row of pistons, and the other side will have 2, since we have 4 blocks in the middle, and we need to condense it down to a single block. We're going to put target blocks here, so that we can redirect the redstone later. It's easy enough to put the blocks we need for the line by placing a temporary block there and then building out like so. We are going to need to then place additional pistons on the other side. Repeat the same process as before by putting a temporary block there and putting the pistons in underneath, and then putting an additional 4 next to that one. Just like before, we're going to put glass in front of our pistons, but unlike before, we're going to put an additional row of pistons beneath that. This row is going to be offset by 1 inward from the ones above it. We're then going to put glass in front of those pistons. Take your target blocks and put those in that little nook. And along the back side here, we're going to run another line for redstone. At this point, your build should look pretty much like this, but we do need to add some more glass, so let's get in the middle here. You want to make sure that your edges are closed up, so wherever there's an air gap as we're going down, we're going to put glass along the sides. Let's do both sides now. You might want to put the redstone on these blocks right now, since they'll be a lot harder to access later, but it is still easily doable, so it's up to you. Next, we're going to put a line of glass down here. And as we're going down, like I said, we have to make sure that the gaps are all filled in. That's it for this particular direction of movement as far as pistons and glass being placed. And now we have to put in the opposing pistons at the right angle. These are going to push over a layer of glass that's going to be right here. You don't need that one. You can have it if you like. And in order to place these pistons, we're going to put a piece of glass here and a temporary block out there. We're going to place that facing inward and that one facing inward with a piece of glass. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. These two sides are slightly different. And on the side where the redstone block is, you're going to want to put a target block. And on this side, you're going to put a solid block. This is because the redstone line that's running through here is actually going to connect to this one. We place a temporary block here. Use our stairs to go up. And now we can connect that down to this one. The redstone is going directly into the block, so we don't need to redirect it. On this side, however, the line is going to run past it, so we're going to have to use a target block to redirect it. We're going to build stairs that lead up to this level so that we can connect it over to this line. And this is where our clock is going to get built with a comparator and a repeater. This line will also continue along and connect over here. So you're going to want to take the redstone all the way from here right across. Then you're going to want to bring it around back here so that it connects to all of these. And we have one last piston system to create, and then we'll put our hopper clock in place and our on-off switch. We're going to come down here and we're going to put in some obsidian. Now, obsidian makes a horrible temporary block unless you're in creative mode, but you're going to want to put them in that configuration, and then another one on the bottom. Along the back, you're going to need one offset right there, and that's going to give you the position of your slime block, which is going to go right here. Just like the whole way down, we have to make sure that these little air gaps are closed up, otherwise drops will leak out of them. So go around and make sure to close them up. And there you go. We're going to place our piston behind our slime block. And in order to get power to this piston, we're going to run a line right along here. You can use the stairs to get up. And we just put a little redstone dust leading straight into the side of the piston. No target block for redirect necessary. And that is the whole piston system now set up with redstone run to it. Let's build the clock, the on-off switch, and the chute next. Grab your hoppers, and you're going to wind up placing one and then replacing it or using a temporary block, but just go in a circle, deleting that first one and sending it back into itself, and now you have a circular hopper clock. If you go in here and put an item in, we'll see that the system is already functioning. In order to stop the system, we're going to put a block here with a lever on the side of it, and that's going to be our on-off switch. In order to add this to the on-off switch, we're going to grab our torches. You're going to place a torch down on top, a block down on top of that. Off to the inner side, you're going to place another torch, another solid block, and then you're going to place redstone dust on the top, with a piston coming out of the redstone dust. Now, when you turn on the system, the pulse is going and the pistons are going just like before. One last thing we have to do is put in our ice and our second portal. You're going to want to bring back your chunk borders and run your ice along this bottom section here. And that's just a little too far. We want to make sure that the portal is in this last position. You can use packed ice or regular ice. If you use regular ice, it will melt with light next to it, so I advise against it. And blue ice is a little faster, so if you want to have the fastest item return, use the blue ice. Right at the end here, we're going to build a portal. And again, you don't necessarily need the corner blocks, but we're putting them in there because we're in creative mode and it's easy because we have all the obsidian we need. A little bit of a glass railing to keep the items from falling off. They shouldn't anyway, but just in case, I like to be safe. And the last thing you have to do is place the soul fires. Remember, we left them out because in survival, it is very deadly to be working on an active farm with fire up. And there you go. That is the entire trans-dimensional killing chamber, one block at a time. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and it helps you out. Please leave a like and subscribe if you did. It helps out the channel greatly. I'm trying desperately to get to partner, and I would appreciate any help you guys could give. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one, so make sure to have a good one, all right? Take care.